very good afternoon to you all, and a warm welcome to the Citizens Chat Show on Civic Space TV. We are streaming on YouTube. I'm your host, Judith Atim, and it's always a pleasure to have you join us. Today on the show, we are discussing the state of multi-party politics in Uganda since independence. Well, this is a topic that is central to our national identity and future. And of course, I am glad to be joined as usual by my usual guests from my immediate left, Dr. Robert Ojiambo, head of the History Department at Kyambongo University. A warm welcome to the show.
Thank you, and good afternoon, viewers.
We also have Dr. Sarah Bireete, Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance. A pleasure having you on the show, Dr. Sarah.
Thank you, and good afternoon, viewers.
Also joining us is Honorable George Odongo, member of the East African Legislative Assembly. A warm welcome to the show.
Karibu sana, asante.
And Mr. Joseph Ochieno, political commentator and UPC Idelogue. A warm welcome to the show, Joseph.
Pleasure to be here, but tell your viewers that before we came on air, we're discussing the Congress of Uganda in Diversity, which includes the deepest of the social contradictions and interests and the beauty of this country, especially when we're all feeling good and loved.
You've summarized it very well. I couldn't have put it better than that. And last but not least, we have retired Major Awich, Pollar, Director for External Affairs at the NRM Secretariat. A warm welcome to the show.
Thank you, and good evening to the viewers.
How is the Secretariat?
Secretariat is a beehive of activities. So many things. So many things is happening. We want to do the best and score the highest percentage ever.
Okay, when are you returning nomination forms for the president?
Nomination is on 23rd, but we're returning, I think, tomorrow because we have been packing them in yellow cases. Yellow, like the crate of beer. They create like yellow crates.
Okay.
We have had the overwhelming return of, so we're just sparing the one to meet the legal limits, then the surplus we also
put in the archives.
Also show it. So we are packing them in yellow crates and we are submitting tomorrow.
Interesting. And Joseph, how far have you gone?
They need to do so early enough because mathematics from Chadondo Road can easily jump from 60 to 100%.
And how is it going for you?
We are fine. We're fine. Of course, Uganda Post Congress, we taught these guys mathematics and we taught them how to do mathematics. But of course, part of the problem is administration. And we hope over the next few days we resolve administrative matters in UPC.
All right.
That the numbers are not a problem.
Okay, thank you. So just for context, you'll know since independence in 1962, Uganda has experienced a complex and also often turbulent political journey. We've seen periods of a vibrant multi-party system. We've had years under a one-party state or a no-party movement system, and also a return to the multi-party arrangement we have today. But the question today that we are grappling with is how has this evolution shaped our democracy? Are political parties fulfilling their purpose? And what does the future hold? What needs to happen for Uganda's multi-party politics to mature and deliver on the promise of true democracy? We shall be talking about all this and lots more on the show today. So very quickly, I will come to you, Dr. Ojiambo, just for us to set the stage, of course, with a bit of political grounding on what we're discussing. But I'll just give you 5 minutes because I want everyone to share perspectives on where we're coming from as a country. Of course, I'd like to have a brief overview of the key phases of our multi-party politics from 1962 to this moment. And also, if you could share with us some of the defining moments and challenges of the different eras. 5 minutes for you and then 5 minutes for Dr. Sarah and so on.
Yeah, party politics in Uganda began as a pressure group, beginning with the Bataka struggles in Buganda, which later translated into the fight of workers. And it gets to be understood when the likes of Musazi began their movement, which was the struggle for not only recognition, but better conditions for coffee farmers and coffee traders, And it went on because of the time just running very fast. They formed the Uganda National Congress, which was at the eve when Africa and Uganda in particular was planning to get independence. But before it could reach to be a national party, it changes form and produces the Uganda People Congress. The Uganda People Congress was one of the first parties that participated in elections. Of course, with it came the Democratic Party and the Conservative Party for Buganda. The Uganda National Congress, as the name suggests, was a semblance of a national party with a number of people coming, mainly elites, early elites who had succeeded in life, teachers, traders, some few professionals at the lower level, and of course the Musazis who had started struggling early 1940s, 50s. And because of that, you needed some balance, and therefore some workers of Makerere college came up under the man called Kasolo, and they started the Democratic Party. It begins as also as a movement which was struggling for a certain group of people who were working in public institutions, but of a Catholic background, because the Uganda National Congress had been dominated. You see, the British were very, very clever. They made sure that every movement that was starting wherever there were colonialists would follow the Canterbury faith and the other things. So this group of people came, and of course the Kabaka group also formed the Conservative Party. Now, at independence, there is no party that would get what would we call a majority rule in Uganda. Of course, when they did the first election, the Democratic Party won, and that's why Benedicto Chiwanuka became the first chief minister. But in the next election after a year, of course, there was a calculation that nobody would gain a majority win. And that is what caused the Uganda People Congress to form an alliance with the Kabaka Yeka party. And that's how they managed to defeat the DP. And therefore, the first party in power, which is handed over power in 1962, is the Uganda People Congress. Now, the Uganda People Congress had come out of the Uganda National Congress was somehow a militant group of people. You remember, many times Musazi was deported to the UK. He was one time deported to West Nile and his teams. So it was set of militant. But now the Uganda People's Congress becomes a little bit, it becomes a diplomatic and a formal party, where majority of the people, as I said, were technocrats who were looking for better conditions. So that's how political party business begins in Uganda. In short, we don't have parties that evolve like the Labour Party in England or the Communist Party in China. It was people coming together to see how they would receive this baby Uganda. And because of that, there is some detachment between the army and Uganda People Congress. Uganda People Congress at first was not very militant, and because of that, the first problem that they dealt with is how to govern the army.
All right, thank you. Sarah, let's come to you. We've seen this very brief history. I would like to hear your contribution. What else can you add to this?
Well, our journey in multi-party politics has been turbulent, just as turbulent as our constitutional journey. I think right at the foundation, we never entrenched principles of democracy and statehood in general. The doctor has summarized the struggle towards independence, the quest for independence and the origin of the parties that were key players at independence. But stability in power is what, affected our practice of multi-party dispensation. Under Obote 1, the foundations, the principles existed. When Idi Amin, of course, the 1966 coup, first was the contest between the lost counties, where manipulation started taking over politics because the negotiation had failed. Who stays where between Bunyoro and Buganda, and then the referendum, the counties that went either way out of the referendum, and the cracks that developed leading to the 1966 crisis. Then 1967 constitution, and after that there was a suppression of political freedoms, unlike at independence. So that separation later grew into what became the 1971 Idi Amin coup, and then parties went into total abeyance. Politics, the constitution, rule of law, everything was suspended until 79. Then you have the transition where political groupings and freedoms were restored in preparation for the 1980 elections. Elections, somehow there were freedoms, but coming from the dictatorial regime of Idi Amin, and that transition not as vibrant as it was in the first years of independence. So 1980 elections, then President Museveni, our colleague, Founder Awich and colleagues take off to the bush. So you have a second set of turbulence. You have a democratic government alongside a civil war, protracted civil war that later affected, of course, first in Central region, later parts of Western Uganda and other parts, until what they call the liberation, which is just a takeover of power, also from a series of coups. From there, we have now suspension of political freedoms. 1986, you have party activities restrained at the headquarters. Parties are not allowed to sponsor candidates. People are not allowed to identify with the parties of their choice in elections, in political participation, until the 2005 referendum. And now we have had these 20 years of a restrained context of political freedoms. So generally our journey in this walk of multipartism has been turbulent. If it was a marriage, you would have had the 2 divorces and a restrained relationship throughout the 62 years of Uganda's independence.
Thank you. So, George, I'd like to hear your overview of the historical, of course, from 62 to just for you to weigh in your observation.
Well,
your
I think the 2 colleagues have captured the history of political parties quite well. But I have had really fundamental issues with political parties, if you want to call them so, in Uganda and largely in Africa. Essentially because there has been elite capture of these political organizations. So what you consider political parties is really an elite ecosystem that reinforces each other and is used for purposes of capturing power. But it does not, most of these political parties really, when you look at them at the formative stages. First of all, what is a political party? You know, the former MP of Rubaga, what was his name? John Ken Luchamuzi. He used to come for debates at Makerere, and he used to say the Conservative Party, I think he was a member of CP, said the Conservative Party under the late Mayanja Nkangi, who by then was part of had joined the National Resistance Movement, the movement government at the time. He said he had reduced the Conservative Party into a non-government organization. And he said political parties are essentially meant to contest for power, and they must be political. But you can see that the thinking around political parties is driven largely by the desire to just capture power. So they have failed historically. All our political parties have failed to have a very strong grassroots presence with a very well articulated agenda, so that you can have representation. I mean, you can have people who align themselves to political parties based on a strong belief that actually this is the party that has my best interest. And I think it's largely also because of the structure of our societies. Our people really are so much concerned about the basics. So they are not sophisticated to the extent that you can have people who say we are social democrats, aligned to say UPC for this case, because UPC is largely is a social democratic leaning. And then you have those who say we are conservatives, and they say, well, you know, we are Democratic Party leaning, and so on and so forth. So the sophisticated nature of political parties in the West that we have, you know, extracted and tried to impose on our people is totally alien. So the birth of these political organizations is actually too alien to our people. Our people are organized traditionally. So my thinking is that if you are to evolve a political organization that is responsive to our people, then it should capture the sentiments and the way we are organized traditionally, culturally, you know, the aspirations of our people, and articulate them that way. But you see, you'll find a political party that is very elite and is talking about the economy. And, you know, they talk about the economy in completely very sophisticated terms that the ordinary citizen does not even understand. Yes, I know that when it comes to providing leadership at that point, you will have to be that sophisticated. But when it comes to how do you then, you know, mobilize support around these political parties, grassroots support, you have to break it to things that the ordinary citizens understand. So most of our people really are not aligned to these political organizations because they largely believe in them. There are other factors that drive people's participation in these political organizations. So it's defective from the start. The way these political parties, I was one of those people who, by the way, campaigned very, very strongly for a movement system, because I thought that by its definition, where they say it's all inclusive, that everybody can be part of this movement and you can make a contribution. It may have its imperfections, but if we worked on that model very well and allowed everybody to have been part of that, we will not be seeing the kind of societal fracture that we are seeing today, of people who are running around political parties that they don't even understand. So my view really is that we must evolve, we must develop a governance system that reflects true Africa, true Uganda, you know, and avoid imposing Western models of democracy. The principles can remain the same. You want it to be democratic.
Mm-hmm.
You want participation of the citizens. You want it to be accountable. You know, you want it to be all inclusive. Those are fundamental principles that cut across. But when it comes to drawing distinctions on matters of policy, on this and that, our people are almost the same. So if you try to separate them on the basis of political parties, you're just dividing people. But I can tell you that the aspirations of the ordinary Ugandan are the same.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Joseph, let me come to you. Your reflections, of course, on our party systems at the start, at independence. We shall come and look at the present later, and of course, dissect some of the issues that George is talking about. A one-party system that's all-inclusive vis-a-vis multiple systems where people still find their issues and identities and aspirations reflected in.
You know, as George was submitting, I sensed that, yes, he must be movementist. and then he declared it. And I have elected to start from elsewhere. One, that within the confines of Uganda only, we have been blessed with a military dictatorship. Idi Amin. Ruthless, disastrous. We've been tragically blessed by a movement political system that had the privilege to rule for double the time of Idi Amin. The outcome, George, unfortunately, has been monolithic, me, myself, and I polity. That has birthed the challenges we all face, that includes some of the issues that Awich must be facing on a daily basis at Chad on the road, and that is politics of money, materialism, and nothing else but comedy. I joined Uganda People's Congress just as I was turning 18 at Mwiri. I can assure you guys, I had the privilege of listening to Paul Semogeri, Conservative, Yoweri Museveni, I don't know, Milton Obote, Social Democratic, in terms of orientations. And I willingly, George, as you suggest, and it's very important points you raise, I'm not contradicting them in a sense. I was fresh, clear at 18 in Mwiri to say that in terms of what my values are, both faith and upbringing, in terms of the desires and needs of my family and my community as a country, and those of us as students of Bosoga Village, Mwiri, and including some of the children of privilege and unprivileged, considering the fact that the education system at the time, you went to Mwiri and you come from one top elite to the other lower. It was very clear that the values as presented by Uganda People's Congress as a political party was, in my opinion, the best for this country. I'm more convinced about it today than ever before. So my point is this, that actually, when we settle down, the average Ugandan, away from the political elite that we now all are, actually generally have the capacity to make a choice, and a political choice. Take us back then quickly to 1952 at the founding of Uganda National Congress on the basis of the foundation that Robert had given. In terms of the struggles of the Musazis, by then it was a very organized socio-political, that from the Bataka Party by 1951, in fact, with working in partnership with others like the Labour Party, the left of the Labour Party, who believed that Africans should be liberated. It was an ideologically driven thing that, no, these are people like all of us, at the risk of us actually playing victim, saying that we Africans, we cannot have the right to make the determination about these values, that actually you can classify yourself and say, these are my needs, these are my desires, these are my areas of interest. I believe in low taxation, I believe in public service, I believe in the desires of education, and I fundamentally believe that women should not be equipment to be abused, and I believe in fairness in employment, which basically some of the things that impinge towards the directions in which political parties and their ideologies are focused. So I don't think it's necessarily an alien thing in Africa. Something happened after independence that helped kill this. And in many parts, we shall discuss it later, some of the things that Sarah spoke about. The coup of 1971 was not a mess inside Uganda. It was a foreign-pushed coup by imperialist forces who basically wanted to break Africa, and I'll explain later. The 1987-85 coup, although DP helped them, DP and NRA were basically agents, fronts, to breaking up the power of the peoples of Uganda in terms of what we're trying to push forward. Uganda National Congress was nationalist enough, conscious of the fact that we needed as a peoples to change and turn our directions. And Dr. Ojiambo, you may need to revisit part of your history. The founding parents of Uganda National Congress were Asians and some Bazungu, including the Lord Fernando Breakways, who were really active Labour Party politicians elsewhere. In fact, when we became Uganda People's Congress in 1960, the reason they moved the national to peoples was to emphasize that diversity. So you can imagine way back in the 60s, people were thinking this diversity that we're trying to abuse today. So it has happened. So to fast forward a bit, where does it go wrong? But before I do that, Sarah, interestingly, from 1952, by 1959, internal as a political party, Uganda National Congress was able to have an ideological contradiction, have a battle for power. The delegates, meaning ordinary delegates from, some of them are illiterates, come to sit at Mbale, but they're able to deselect their president. So they expel a president, democratic, because this is the context of what we're talking. Power to expel a president, president concedes expulsion. They elect Obote, who was absent in the meeting. Obote comes, shows good manners, goes to look for his president, Musazi, said, what has happened, because Obote was not in Mbale. So he goes, he wants to meet his president first. So he's also teaching us some good manners.
And there was no mobile
phone
for him to have.
Things like that, yeah. So he goes, talks to Musazi. Musazi says, yes, this is what has happened, and I give you a blessing. He goes and accepts the position.
And there's no tear gas.
And there's no tear gas, but also there's no split. From 1959 to 60.
George, that's for you.
These guys are able to work together, Uganda People's Union and Uganda People's Congress, and reunite and refound a political party. Fast forward, go to independence. At independence, just a correction for my 5 minutes. The independence composition of government, it has been historically put in error that UPC joined KY in order to defeat DP. It was not true. KY did not exist at Lancaster House time. Kabaka Yeka was represented as a group. The political party was formed towards elections. It is simply that UPC won the majority of the votes, but its majority would be, if it was to form a minority government, it would have a majority of 3, including the 9 nominated members of parliament granted to a winning political party. And so UPC's central executive, in a very impressive way, says that we need to form a government of national unity, consensus government, sir. So meaning that we share power, all of us, so that we're able to deal with the hard questions. At that time, DP refuses to join because DP had issues with KY. And DP's KY and issue is basically the religious thing in Buganda, where in fact, Buganda historically, and we blame the British a bit, but more about the religious thing, the fact that Mengo had obviously historically suppressed Catholics in Buganda. Hence, the Catholic establishment in Buganda in 1954, founding a political party, basically sort of counter Protestant influence in the country. And so the fact that these guys managed to do that and found a government, a coalition government after DP refused to join, again shows something that we need to learn from lessons from today. It is possible to have a government of national unity. It's possible to have a coalition, but it's a choice for people to choose. And finally, for my last 1 minute, as 30 seconds, as Sarah says, the first issue is referendum. But before referendum, we were able to have a consensus at 1963 to say we want to break with the British. let's dissolve the office of the Governor General and found the office of a president, meaning titular president. This happened. I am seeing a beginning of African leaders at the time, although they were not mainly educated and exposed. There was an attempt by Africans to farm around democracy, whatever it was. How to move on from there, I think, is phase 2.
Okay, thank you. Major, I think the mic is yours, and I'd like also your thoughts and reflections on how multipartism has evolved from 62, but I'd like you to stop at around 86 because I want us to discuss present day a little later.
Well, it is important for us to discuss this because, as you said, it will help shape our current and future destiny. Because if we see the mistakes done or the strong points that were there, we can pick it forward or erase the mistakes and make a better governing system. So it is not an idle and redundant discussion. I also like to say that in tackling this topic, I wouldn't really mind much about the actors, which political party was there, but rather the framework system. So I would therefore start by saying, first of all, why and how did we jump into multi-party system as a country? The multi-party system had developed in Europe, in UK particularly, because at the advent of the steam engine, when factories started to be made, a class formed into a capitalist class which was acquiring property and became wealthy and industrialist. So they formed a capitalist class. And then yet there was this ruling class of the king or the queen, which was quite conservative. So even if the conservative king system relinquished political party per se, but there was people who were looking at the society in a conservative way. So UK developed the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. Because the Labour Party was, again, because of the industrial process, out of factories, workers came to be developed in numbers. And that's why they have a socialist attitude. So unknowingly, when they came to Uganda, they thought, or to Africa, they thought it's automatic, let's have parties.
They'll just import the same systems and ideologies.
Very concerned about the practical historical material condition on the ground in UK. And therefore we are plunked into parties. And we started there in and moved on. But later on, because of this import, which was superimposed on us, even the so-called parties now started a mass trend, not only in Uganda, but merely the whole of Africa, what you would call crossings. Here you come to parliament as from one party, and there was crossing after crossing after crossing, to the point that the multipartism lost meaning. By the time Amin was overthrowing Obote, nearly the opposition was empty. So we are now running from our multi-party system to a one-party system voluntarily. And this did happen in Tanzania with CCM, it did happen with KANU in Kenya, it did happen with Zambia with the Kaunda party. So the whole trend, we were voluntarily now changing from a multi-party to a single party. And then he said, those who were saying, why could this be? And of course, one of the reasons was the superimposition, because we couldn't sustain it. Somebody may think that the one-party system or what was brought by NRM. No, it was voluntarily done in parliaments, in crossing. Nearly every rally, whether it was in Umbaro or wherever, there would be and not crossing ordinary voters, but crossing of members of parliament, where you cross the floor. You cross the floor. And that is why maybe we shall discuss later that the later conference now put in strict measures that should you be in Nyamshozi and you know that you can only win election on NRM in Nyamshozi and you come to parliament to cross. That is why now there's to cure the other mischief, said should you cross now, you lose Nyamshozi seat. But this was the trend then. So the multi-party that we had could not sustain itself. So it was killing itself. Then, the couple up then was also the military coups. You know, at the beginning, the political science, or the social understanding of political science then was that, according to Marx and Engels, was that the workers would form a reserve army of workers and they would overthrow a state. And according to them, it was legitimate because they are the workers and they are the ones who are being exploited. I think by 1848, when the Karl Marx and Engels were formulating this theory, there were not so many national armies or standing armies, but the army picked up from that trend that the workers could overthrow. Now, the military took it up, totally messing up the so-called multi-party now again. So multi-party had already started itself by crossing and forming one-party system, country to another, and now the military are also seeing that there's a chance of taking over coup. They abandoned the whole thing and making nearly the entire continent reversed from multi-party to a no-party. And now the no-party system spirit, I think the Africans or the Ugandans now started seeing it's like some sense in it. And that's why maybe we'll discuss later that now in Uganda you have two systems. You have the multi-party system and the political system, which says when one is in power, the other one is in abeyance. For example, now we have a multi-party system. It doesn't mean that the movement political system is not there. It is somewhere hiding in abeyance, which is a recognizable political system under the constitution. I think it is Article 69. Therefore, the history of political parties in Uganda is a mixture of a superimposition from the classes in the UK, which had parties, and rightfully so, to the imposition here, and the inability of Ugandan to sustain it by massive crossing, and again, looking at its weakness by the military coming in, we are reduced to nothing. So that's basically the history of political parties, in my view.
Okay, thank you very much. So now we move to present day. Dr. Ojiambo, you've had Major and George. Their argument is for a no-party system, okay? The thinking is with a no-party system, our society would not be as fractured as it is today, in your words, right? His argument is also that this is largely a foreign import, and perhaps the fractures or the fissures we see are also because this is not a homegrown kind of, it is not something that germinated and morphed locally or organically. Do you think the problems that we have in our society, the antidote to this is a no-party system?
Judith, you know, the biggest problem we have had in the political history of Africa is that the elites in Africa want to blame their problems elsewhere. India and China were one of the biggest colonies that have ever been. But when China got its independence from Japan, by the way, from Japan, and of course with the influence of the Western powers, they decided and metamorphosized their own political system. Of course, borrowing some elements from Europe and some elements from the Japanese. And they came up with their own thing, which has helped them to prosper to today, the power we have. India may have challenges in its politics, but it has had a stable democracy. In fact, it's the world's biggest democracy. In Africa, because people are, in most cases, interest-based, the leaders and the people alike, there have been that blame game. And in fact, blame becomes the campaigning slogan. And that's why my colleagues here, one is blaming that political parties was a superimposition of elites on Africans. Then another one is saying the problems of the coup was not the problems of the people, it was because of other people. No, the other people came in because you are weak. And because of that, that creates a very big problem. In other words, the trouble with Africa, we have had a long period of no genuine leaders. At independence, there was an attempt of people coming up to try to salvage the problems of Africa. The Kwame Nkrumahs, the Kenneth Kaundas, and others. But later, they were also infiltrated by a number of issues. And Africa being a continent of former kingdoms, the kingdom question is a very big issue, where leaders want to behave like kings, not knowing that kings were aristocrats who were only because of birth. But now you are having leadership where you must lead people according to their wishes. And that creates a very huge problem. Now come to political parties in its real sense. Political parties are not like a religion. Political parties form out of the problems of the day. I gave a background of how political parties had evolved in Uganda out of the labor issues, the peasant issues, and so many other issues, especially on the colonial economy. But later people abandoned that and started using political parties as a general purpose vehicle. If you read all the minds of the independent leaders of Uganda, their first aim was how do they place themselves, and that has continued up to today. Even the current leaders in Uganda, they look at how do they place themselves so that they can subdue the other groups and become the people. And that's why my colleagues here, one of them has said, you see, the problem was not, it was the Catholic Church. Yes, it might have been one of the problems. But the UPC was doing very poorly in Buganda. In Buganda, they were doing very, very poorly. And therefore, they wanted an alliance with Buganda, knowing the centrality of Buganda in Uganda to survive. And therefore, that's why they promised each other what they would not sustain, promising the Kabaka that you will remain Kabaka, and for that matter, you can even become the first president. There was a quarrel even between the other leaders, why it was Frederick Luanguzi Mutesa II to be the one voted. In fact, some people complained that there was some foul, but the issue was to bring Buganda together in government so that it can help them, give them legitimacy in this area. And it became the major problem. And she talked about the other problem. When we were writing the constitution, we left two issues unresolved. And I have always said this, that one time they interviewed Okot Bitek, one of the Ugandans who are studying in the UK, to talk about the constitutional making press at Lancaster. And he said the whole thing is being treated like a sack of eggs, being a literature person, that's how he described it, that it is being treated like a sack of eggs. You can imagine you have a sack, and in that sack there are eggs. You have to be very careful. And the eggs was Buganda. You had to be very careful on how you treat Buganda, because if you don't treat them well, the conference may break. Because in the minds of the majority of Ugandans, they were for a unitary government. Majority of Ugandans, Bunyoro, Busoga, Alango, Acholi, and others wanted a unitary government. That's the word they were using, unitary government. It was only Buganda which wanted a federal government. And because of that, the leader then, who was the midwife of this thing, Milton Obote, discovers that. And he somehow promises what he cannot fulfill. The second issue was the issue of Bunyoro. Because once you touch Bunyoro, Buganda, the eggs are going to break. Because Bunyoro had lost some counties to Buganda, Buyaga, Bugangaizi, and others. So this issue also was not sorted at the Lancaster. So we had a constitution with almost two types of government. We had the rest of Uganda unitary, but Uganda with some semi-federal, where they would appoint their chiefs, they appoint their people. It is put in our constitution. Then the third issue was the issue of who becomes the leader of the country. Is it a president or a prime minister? Being a British colony, we should have had a prime minister. But because of some American influence, the people believed that the president would be the right thing. So two issues are pended. the issue of presidency, which would be determined in 1962, and the issue of presidency that would be determined in 1964 in a referendum. Those are the three major issues that brought problems to the politics of Uganda and have affected parties. Each one of them, you may think that these leaders of Uganda have the same mother, they have the same behavior, same DNA, one manipulating the others to survive up to today. So when the biggest issue, when DP was defeated, they went back, and the DP also with their problems, they wanted a Republican government, but majority of their supporters were in Buganda, where federal is the most popular thing. So that was a major problem. So they get a few supporters from from Acholi, a few from Western Uganda, but majority are from Buganda here. So they get that dilemma. Two, the issue of Buyaga and Bugangaizi causes a conflict between UPC and the Kabaka establishment or Buganda establishment. The king, who was the president here, they voted him president, almost a ceremonial president, wants Buyaga and Bugangaizi to remain in Buganda. But the government thinks that it is unfair. And therefore, there is that Ndaiga project where they start ferrying people from Buganda to Bunyoro to go and open up camps there. And later, that brings a conflict between the prime minister and the other people. Mm-hmm. So for me, I want to say that the major problem of political parties has been us using the political parties as vehicles for our own success, which has created room for other weaknesses and those people you are calling foreigners to come in. Otherwise, if people were picking political parties and using them from the principles that Sarah normally enumerates here of democracy, of accountability, and so on, the political parties themselves don't have problems. But it is the people who run these political parties. They want to sail through the boat of political parties, but they want to run personal interest. That is the biggest problem. Even when we reach to Uganda today, you will find that is the biggest problem. People don't go into a political party to promote the principles of the political party, but they want to use their political party to champion their own interest. So much that when their interests are not fulfilled, then the political party is bad. Political parties are bad. The father of Honorable Odongo, who does not like political parties, the father of the movement system, in 1980, he came through a political party.
Father?
Yes, the father of the movement.
Okay.
Which you promote.
Okay.
He came through a political party. But his political party was a DMC. It was a DMC vehicle. It could not move. And that's why he only won one seat. And that one seat was because one of the candidates in Kasese died. So he was unopposed. There was no serious even election. So in my view, that person now started thinking that political parties are bad things. Then the propaganda of sectarianism, the propaganda of causes of started, and making Ugandans to hate political parties on a wrong note because his political party could not move. So for me, I don't think that political parties per se have a problem. It is people who are using political parties that create a problem.
Thank you, Sarah.
Well, maybe to add on, of course, Dr. Jambo has elaborated a lot. But if you look at what went wrong in the country, really, in terms of multipartism, Ugandans don't view political parties as organs for competition of ideas, for competition of leaders, and competition of who should take leadership. They look at them as mere clothes. Today I'm wearing white, tomorrow I'll wear red, black, yellow, so long as I'm smart. So they are spaces of convenience to some people who are not ideologically grounded. If you go by the current, happenings in the country, if Party X has not given me a flag, I go to Party Y. Party Y gives me a flag, I run. If tomorrow I fail, I may bow to be on Party Z. So you find that at the end of the day, you don't know what these leaders stand for. Even parties, as much as anybody can hire, a person to draft a party charter or constitution and a manifesto, you find that the leaders don't even know what is written in this party constitution, party principles. Because if you go on the website and read, you find some beautiful
good documents, that's true.
Things. But do leaders even voice out to this? If you ask them if they take power, and without mentioning names, what they would do, then you're like, okay, what is it? Because there's nothing they're saying. So you wonder whether, first of all, we have serious leadership in the country to begin with. The people in these structures we call parties. Two, if you compare with, and I know coming from Bushenyi, which was predominantly UPC, so we grew up seeing these UPC big wings, Ranyarari, Tuverondwa, Rangaranga. If there was a wedding and there's a UPC family involved, you would go to see the latest fashion in town. That was Kampala brought home in our villages.
when is the next wedding? I'm coming.
You want to take Kampala fashion?
Yes.
We would go to see Mercedes Benz. The Toronto's are about to arrive. Even when he would be visiting schools, it was a big deal. You want to see. In a way, they were inspiring, and I'm saying this having grown up in an opposition party to UPC, a family, because my family was UPM.
Oh,
yes.
so sorry.
Yeah. So we were among the minority people I knew about 6 families already that were UPM in the district. Yeah. So we would go to see these guys as they arrive. I mean, the big boys. So, but the ideologies they would speak. The party chairman for UPC, the district chairman, the red Coltaro at the time. Then you see, of course, Tverondwa, Rangaranga. Then you would hear the young ones, Professor Kamuntu would hear about them. They were part of Bushenyi, but not in our area. Science versus syndicate. Because of being in a political family. So those were the conversations really have grown up, having political conversations. As you learn to talk, it's the conversation you hear. So you would hear there's division and how science is fighting syndicate. But there was ideology. You grow up and study, civics. It had not been banned as we did primary. It was still there. Then you learn about the Common Man's Charter, which was the strong ideology of the UPC. So when you compare it today, other than the few interested elite who would know this party is tending to socialism or liberal democracy, do we know really? The beloved NRM of my family, the part of my family, they would talk about Pan-Africanism, social transformation, democracy as their ideology. And is that part ideology? So Yeah, but is that party ideology?
Yeah.
Social. These are just English words. So this is the kind of multipartism that we are in. You find that many people don't even know, the ones who are fighting for the flag, survival of the fittest, like we saw at Kororo and in the NRM primaries. If you ask them what NRM stands for, many of them will open their eyes wide. They might not know. They are just there to win seats, to get jobs, and to partake of the national cake. So you find that the foundation that would hold the party, called ideology, does not exist. Where it exists, it's on paper.
Not in
It
principle.
is not in practice. It is not written at the hearts of the members. So they have nothing. It's not a competition of ideas. Now our political party is, discourse is a competition of money. Even those who know, if you don't have enough money in your pocket. Yesterday I was chatting with one of the senior members of the NRM, and I asked him, did you get the flag? And he said, am I a thug? You know, those flags were just won by thugs who could fight hard, who could buy hard, those are the people with the flag. And this is a senior lawyer, formerly in office of the president. Now, you a senior member of the party, that's how he's describing a party process of his own.
Yes.
And he said many of them, including ministers, are going to run as independents. So half of the people with the flag might be defeated unless they promote that saga of money and violence, which is likely to dominate the general elections. So what kind of multipartism are we talking about in terms of quality? It does not exist. These are just now vehicles of convenience. If I'm not in this party, I will be in this party. Just for purposes of organization. When you look at the principles in the country, because multipartism is driven by 3 principles of freedom of association, but also strong civic competence and rule of law. They are all largely lacking. Because the social base of parties does not exist. The people. The civic polity of the people is at the lowest. They can't even demand. They don't even understand their role in parties other than voting and keeping a particular party in power. They can't demand. They can't mobilize. They can't demand accountability and good leadership within parties. We were discussing the other day the quality of, the flag bearers that are coming through. Almost zero. Across board. Zero. In terms of leadership, the way Judith is looking at me. Across
There's
board.
just so much pessimism.
No, but it's what we are dealing with. Because really, the quality of leadership in this country.
You know, Sarah, today I was teaching
I'm
the
going to call
famous
you guys.
French
Let me finish.
Revolution,
I'm in a TV show.
and I was explaining the point of despotic, weak leadership in France, and I was giving examples of how that was. In my mind, I said, "Am I describing Uganda?"
Yeah, of course.
Where the rule of law, kalas, corruption highest, inefficiency of government departments at the highest. I told the students, I am not speaking about Uganda. I am talking about in France in 1789.
So that's where we are. So when you look, parties should be vehicles for producing the best leadership through their systems, through mentorship, the cadre identification processes. So by the time they go through their internal processes, they should give us the best at the national level. But is that the case? No. Because these are the advantages of multi-party politics. But we are experiencing the reverse.
Thank you. Judge, I want to come to you still on from where Sarah left off, the role of party ideology, and also how to reawaken that civic consciousness so that you have that caliber of citizens who actually demand for better from their parties, whether it's regardless of whether they want to belong to a one-party system or a multi-party system, but certainly there is need to have that mass of citizens who are critical and aware of, you know, the issues that should matter to them.
Judith, you see, the more I listen to Dr. Jambo and I've listened to Dr. Sarah, the more they confirm exactly what we have been talking about. I've just been looking at them and I'm amazed.
Yes.
That they have confirmed exactly the fears that we have expressed about political parties in Uganda and why we need to domesticate this governance model. You see, the question we should be dealing with now is actually governance and get what is the best way. That's why initially I told you that I'm more interested in the core principles. I'm more interested in democracy where everybody is participating. I'm more interested in the rule of law. You know, those are the core elements of governance. Political parties in this country, you see, they say garbage in, garbage out.
Computer appliances.
You see, at the formative stages, they were defective. Remove tribe from this country, remove religion from this country, and you will get Ugandans who almost have the same characteristic. Almost, I don't know how many, what percentage, almost 80% of our population is agro-based. So if you remove tribe and you remove religion, you're just going to find Ugandans. That's why some years back, there was what they call the compact on, multi-party compact on what? On
The
Citizens Compact.
On free and fair.
On free and fair elections. And there was also a Citizens Compact, which defined what were their priorities. It came out. What were the priorities of the citizens? So you can see that the citizens are now telling the so-called parties that these are our interests. Meaning that the parties, they look at parties as alien. The citizens have come together. These are voters. They have come together and they have aggregated their interests. So you can see that the citizens aggregate their interests, and these are their interests, A, B, C, D. Then they look at you parties and they say, please, whoever wins from amongst any one of you, these are our interests. It means that those political parties do not actually have platforms that articulate common interests of Ugandans. So it confirms what we are saying here, that they're just special purpose vehicles. So in Western democracies where we have transplanted this thing from, the structure of their society has interests that are very well articulated. You will find that the farmers have a huge stake. You have the industrialists, they have a huge stake. You see? So when they say this is our ideology, and they say this is our party ideology, you'll find that it's more inclined to address the interest of this group. If you come to Uganda, are you going to say you are going to articulate the interests of which group now? You're going to say, I want to address the interests of the Baganda? That is how you put it very well. You said there was no way UPC would win because this was Buganda. Then it means that it is formed along a tribal line. Or Catholics you know, could not work with the Protestants. It means they were formed along religious lines. So you see, the infrastructure of our colonial masters was left here and we inherited it. We did not remodel it. We did not change it to address the unique characteristics of our traditional Ugandan society. So what we need to birth is a governance model. We have tested political parties and you've seen what they have done. They have failed experiments from the time after independence to date. The NRM that we are saying here, you were telling us the NRM, you know, there was this. It's also struggling as a political party. You can't call it that's a perfect political party. It's not, because it's inheriting a failed experiment. You see? So we as Ugandans, we as Africans, we need to start thinking about what is it in terms of our governance that can deliver the best for our society. We have a low civic competence and nobody wants to even try to deal with it. Because you see, for you to make a choice, you have got to be very well informed. You see, then you are able to say, I think this political party articulates my position much better than the other. Otherwise, all these political parties, if you read their manifestos, they are the same.
Let's hire a CEO.
You get it?
They are
the same.
At State House.
That's why now the issue is not about who articulates the interests of the people more. The competition has been reduced to who has more money. Because people are poor. Poverty is the equalizer. You see, who has the organizational capabilities, but who is able to facilitate such an organizational, you know, has the capacity to organize.
But George,
see, so all these are the imperfections of a failed political system called multi-party.
So I am curious on that.
Yeah.
The multi-party system may have failed, according to you, but you have a party that has been in power for 40 years. And my thinking would be, since you say a one-party system or a no-party system would be a better vehicle to deliver for Ugandans, we still see all these gaps that you talk about. The corruption is systemic. The service delivery, which perhaps the opposition parties could not deliver others, it's the same problem that you are grappling with as a ruling party. So is it still fair to actually heap the blame on a multi-party system?
That's what I'm telling you. I've told you that, I don't know.
That this mess is inherited.
It's no exception. There is no exception. It's just that we have a wrong model. Period. If you have a wrong model, it does not matter how much you try to fix it. The problem is much bigger. You see, the superstructure that we are dealing with and the base, you see now, if you're talking about the superstructure, these are political parties and so on and so forth. But you see, the base, which she talked about, the base, who are the people? Yeah? We have not been able to capture the aspirations of the people and be able to deliver on those. So it doesn't matter how you build. As long as the foundation is wrong, that building is bound to collapse. You see? So, civic education, yes, it's one of it, if you want a remedial measure. But you know, first, do these political organizations, in the way they are formed, are they really reflecting on the diversity that we have? Okay? And then, are they best? We said it here, they are really special purpose vehicles. They're total elite capture. See, what we're seeing here is a total elite capture. And everything that you see in these political parties, all of them, all these political parties, is elite competition. Elite competition for power. They are not in any way based on the ordinary citizens.
Yeah, but
that's why for me, I have a liberation mentality
Yes.
at all times.
So ideally, if we restored civic competence, or if we enhanced the civic competence of our citizens, I assume we would have the citizenry who would build these parties, you know, to reflect the ideologies and aspirations that they want to have or that they would like to see in a good party, and henceforth deliver for themselves and for others. But again, it is this very government that dismantled subjects like civics, right?
Yeah.
Was it the ruling, was it
Was
NRM
that the
that
name?
dismantled?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
It was
Okay.
civics.
Okay.
So it's like basically shooting yourselves in the foot.
You know, Judith, you are reducing me to discuss NRM. But the
I
topic we are
know.
talking about
Is
here
multipartism.
is multi-party democracies. You're pushing me on the wall to defend NRM. I am here debating the whole principle of multi-party democracy. And this is where I'm always having a challenge, because if every, you see, we need to address the question. The question here is multi-party democracy the panacea
To Uganda's
to
malady.
Uganda's problems? And I'm telling you from where I sit, and having looked at how we have done it since 1962, it does not matter which political organization will emerge. It will not address Uganda's problem. We need to fix governance broadly. And that's why I like the whole issue that, you know,
So
we have
whether
a
it's,
center
whether
for
it's a
constitutional
one-party
governance here. We
system
need
or
to
a
fix
no-party
governance.
system, it would not deliver, right?
Whether it's a no-party system or multiple or whichever, as long as
We don't address the
we don't
fundamentals.
address the fundamentals, you know that garbage in, garbage out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Joseph.
You know, I have the advantage on this panel of being the oldest. I have the advantage that as I said, very deliberately actually, Judith, part of the problem for your viewers today is that I think this topic is possibly too broad. It's a very exciting topic. And so sometimes, actually, George, if maybe we had 4 hours, we could do slightly much more justice to go into that. But also, I think this is a topic that requires, and one of the reasons why I look forward to coming to this program is that every program is an academic class of its own in many ways. Fantastic stuff. I think I said at the inception deliberately that I joined the UPC at 17, 18 in Mwiri. And I was sort of attempting to counter Dr. Ojiambo's arguments about the question of social class and classism. And I said I was substantially, maybe partly due to civics, but maybe partly due to the foundations of my family.
1979.
1979, 80 years.
After the coup.
Yes.
Okay.
You know, and maybe,
Which coup?
okay, you know what she means.
Which coup?
71.
Overthrow of Amin.
Yeah.
79.
Was that a coup?
Yes.
But Amin was overthrown.
You will tell us what it is. Don't worry.
The coup was internal. Is internal.
And
Idi
this was
Amin
an
was
overthrown.
Overthrown.
Okay.
Okay.
So, so I joined the time I made a conscious decision, having listened to Museveni, listened to Semogeri, and all representing their political parties, and listened to Obote. Obote wowed me. And by the way, these are from right inside me. And it's not about party politicking, you know. I genuinely joined Uganda People's Congress at the time simply because of the programs UPC and Obote had, you know. Fast forward to today, I'm much more convinced about it than then. Number two, I don't necessarily agree, Robert, you know, that in 1952, the majority of Ugandans who were galvanizing themselves around Uganda National Congress were not sufficiently socially conscious as to constitute a critical social base from a political scientific perspective. Because I talked about some of the we all talked about the grievances of the average African Ugandan at the time, predominantly in Uganda because the Musai's way started from the foundation from Uganda, but across the country. Issues of fair prices for your products, issues of the fact that the African, when they go to Kampala, for a job, they find a Muzungu boss and an Asian clerk, and for them, they are scaries in their own country. Those are the issues. Those are the issues that affected our people across the board in this country. And so when the Musazis were talking, and then link it to the cooperative movement in terms of economic welfare and well-being, you know, it constituted the founding ideology that led to Uganda National Congress, led to our, if you like, social democratic left. The British Labour Party friends are socialist friends from outside who came in just like post-World War, where these guys were looking all other countries, not only in Uganda, including the Nkrumahs in the 50s in Ghana and things like that. Political parties had been formed, you're looking for partnership. He is the head of external affairs for NRM. The relationship that links across the party, you can't then go ahead and say because we're friends with the Chinese Communist Party, they injected this onto us. I'm simply saying that friends from the Labour Party, the German Social Democrats, you know, these guys were simply saying, okay, you guys found yourself because we want you to liberate yourself, because we don't agree with this imperialist concept from global north that Africa should be a source for raw materials and nothing else. We want you guys to gain independence. So in terms of the founding values of this political organization, it was really about us. Now, fast forward, at independence, we were an established political party, a political party that at independence say we were drawing a 10-year development program to say that, look, we shall make sure that we emancipate the better lot of our people so that we move the Ugandan African controlling the economy from 12% by GDP to 35%, the figures I've already given here, in 3 years. You know, what is that if it's not? Saying that we shall expand health services and build hospitals across the country. Saying that we shall expand education and build schools, including as early as 63. Saying that we want girl child education. These are Africans. Guys, I'm saying let's not talk ourselves down. This can be done. Founding parents did it then. And build girl child schools. Extend infrastructure. You know? No. These guys had an idea. These things worked. Now, because we had obstacles down the road where, I think again Robert gets it wrong, the 1961 Lancaster House Agreement was a combination of conversation between political parties, the kingdoms, and the republics across the country. So again, to be fair to our people, you know, there has never been a national consensus amongst Africans. Just the fact that it went wrong is neither here nor there. Number three, the presidency in 1963 was a decision after independence that we said that let's push away the British, where the Governor General is our symbolic head, and then we get a president elected by Parliament. We had a system that worked, it has started. Granted, the Lost County thing, the Lost County thing had also been discussed by all. It was not necessarily an issue between Buganda and Bunyoro, nor did it involve Milton Obote per se as an individual. It wasn't. It was a national thing. I'm simply saying that, because it's a long conversation, Amin's coup, I'm not saying that we Africans were innocent. I'm simply saying Amin, and Robert, you're the history professor here, you need to check. Amin's coup was pushed by Global North, you know, use Amin to break Milton Obote because they wanted to break into Uganda because they wanted to control our economy. There's an ideological thing here, Global North versus the others. And then, of course, the issue of Congo, where they wanted to control and apartheid South Africa. You know, so they used Idi Amin. Were we perfect as a country? No. If I look at George, if I look at the progress this country made between 1962 and 71 and 1981 and 85, just confine those in economic and social index minus the war in Luweero, I can't compare it to 40 years of today of NRM, you know. But I get, Judith, what George is saying, that all these other political systems have failed, including his. I would be very interested to know which model works. But then you realize my argument.
Yeah, that's the question
Yes,
I actually wanted to come to next.
Article 69 caters for that. Article 69 answers that.
You want to take it back to the movement system, which failed anyway. The movement system, so-called, worked for 20 years and could not deliver what UPC government delivered in 1 year. But let's not go there. I'm just simply saying that the multi-party political system has never been given the credit that it deserves. Meaning what multi-partyism delivered for the people of Uganda. Say, for instance, in the independence government, notwithstanding 1966 itself, is far, far, far too much better. Now, finally, you travel around the world and then you see other sister parties, how they work. I don't really think the grievances of voters in whether the global north or in the global south elsewhere, maybe in Southeast Asia, are generally different. It's really about the social issues. And I think this panel should not risk the idea that our rural folks are too uneducated to know what they want. Generally, they do. I told this program, Judith, that now senior citizen Aliro Mara, who was our Minister for Commerce, Aliro Mara told me in 1989, I met him in Nairobi over some of the different circles, and told me that, you know what, in 1980, elders came to their home. He was just merely a lawyer. Elders came to their home and said, look, you're a good young man, and you know, multipartyism is coming, politics is coming here, we want you to be a member of parliament representative. And then he went and represented them. Something has happened about monolithic politics, something has happened about monetizing politics, and something has happened about patronage by the current system, which basically we're paying for it. How we're able to detox that, in my opinion, is the issue. I think if we're able to deal with this in a transitional manner, Sarah, you know, there's no reason why pluralist politics doesn't work here. Finally, which political party emerges beyond UPC, because I don't want to count, beyond UPC, okay, we can say NR is a political party, ODP the traditional political party on the basis of their rootings and foundings, you know, and they have the characters and they deliver like political parties and they argue on the basis of the issues to deliver to the people. And people then go ahead and make a free choice that on the basis of their programs, we want you to be the one to represent us in the next election. That is what is lacking in this country at this material time. And if you see the way the debates are going on now, some of the new leaders are being adopted. We are not having opportunity to have a free and fair, open, competitive conversation that George is expressing his frustrations over. And so therefore the results are not sufficient to test.
Okay, yeah. I'll come to you, Major, but then one question that I would like you to all be reflecting on. I know George has already emphasized this, but to the rest of you, can a multi-party system actually work? Are the values entirely foreign, or are these values that actually resonate to our own African values? And if they are to work, how can we make them work? I think that's what I'd like to hear.
Thank you. Should I comment about the voluntary coup issue?
No, it has been resolved.
Yeah, it has been resolved. Yes, it was an overthrow. Yes.
Because I was getting worried that she's being polluted by Ombarai somewhere. Because within the circles of Ontare, we...
Especially since you missed the dinner.
Maybe I missed the dinner and somebody jumped in. Otherwise, I missed the voluntary dinner. The dinner for Baranyanya was really tight. But maybe for the sake of viewers is that we tend to say you should speak what you mean and mean what you talk. There's this common joke where God met a boy. And the boy was very happy for me having met God. And he asked for 3 things from God. 1, God, I want you to make me grow up. God said, granted. 2, when I grow up, let me drive a big vehicle. Mark the word big vehicle. God said, you will get it. You'll drive it. And thirdly, God, Father, let that big vehicle be full of beautiful girls. God said, granted. All your 3 wishes will be granted. But right now he's driving the bus for Bweranyanji girls, school bus. Hasn't he grown up? Isn't the bus big? And the Bweranyanji girls beautiful? So speak what you mean what you speak. When you say cool, not something similar to cool. Mean it. Otherwise God gave him all he wanted. So when you mean a Land Cruiser, said, God, give me my Land Cruiser. If you meant a beautiful girlfriend, said, give me beautiful. Not a big vehicle full of beautiful girls. And God grants you all the 3. And you cry, no, God, that is not what I meant. What did you mean?
Your time is up.
Now, first, Dr. Robert says that African intellectuals like to blame colonialism. I don't think so. Because when you talk of factual matters, like the origin of political parties, unless you're telling me African elites are saying the political parties didn't germinate here, in Uganda there was this party called so and so before colonialism, you're a historian, before colonialists came there was this party, this, so why are you blaming it on But these are facts. Parties were brought. This is not a blame game. And now comes to the merits and demerits. You see, what determines consciousness? Consciousness is not idealistic. It is determined by a materiality. And that is why we are saying the material conditions that determines the formation of social classes in terms of parties does not exist in our context. And that's why we have failed. We have failed to the extent that even when you are talking on NRM, because this material condition does not exist, even a professor minister in NRM will find it not easy to talk of NRM ideology. Why? Because the system of parties simply is difficult to frame it. Period. Professor so-and-so is a minister of this in NRM. Take him aside and say, sir, what is the ideology? Why? Do you think he's a fool? It's just because the nature of this thing is not applicable. So everybody fumbles with it. There is also this connotation that movement system was there and did movement by its own merit didn't fail. And we have told people, for example, look at the democracy under a no-party system. Did you know that during NRM you'd censure ministers, moreover powerful ones? What is that if it is not democracy? Sam Kutesa went, Jim Mwezi went, and in that kind of democracy, that was African nature. Even the Attorney General would vote against the minister. Now, this brought us the issue for us. Because people tended to say, if you say this thing is all encompassing, why is there a for us and a for them? We in the movement. The for us and the we in the movement was a reaction, not a proaction. Why? The Cecilia Wall, the Rwanyarare were saying you are conscripting us. You are forcing us into this thing. Now, as a reaction, those who believed in the movement started saying for us, meaning those who believe in it. Now, if there wasn't this other planting, which we still believe was a Western implant, connected together with the what is that IMF, what city in America is what?
Washington.
The Bretton Woods.
The Bretton Woods
The Bretton
institutions,
Woods
yes.
one.
The ones you absorb.
The World Bank and the IMF came together with this multi-party demand and therefore planted this in the movement, which was sailing smoothly, which had its democratic system, where a minister would be censored. Now, if a minister walked naked here in this multi-party, from City Square to Parliament, we would not allow him to be censored. We say we was bewitched by opposition. A system which would not work in the movement. So you can see that the multi-party system inherently couldn't fit.
No, but Major, sorry to cut you short. Are you trying to say the failure to have strong checks and balances within the NRM is because of the creation or the emergence of multi-party systems?
Which checks and balances?
Yeah.
No, because you were actually saying under the one-party system, you were able to censure ministers for wrongdoing. But why don't we see you doing that anymore?
You did some information. Just recently, I think last year, the Parliament of Uganda successfully censured the minister. The state minister for lands, Namuganza,
That lady.
was censured. They followed all the processes. The whole parliament unanimously censured this person. But the person has continued to serve as a minister. Do you want to blame that on multi-party politics?
On poor UPC.
Well,
Okay. Sarah also wants to ask, then you'll respond.
Sorry, and I will be very brief. You know, there is a notion that the demand for return of multi-party politics was foreign aided.
No.
But there were court battles.
Yes.
Zaka Lolumu, James Rwanyarare, and others.
Including Ochieno.
Consistently in the Constitutional Court, nullifying the first referendum law, demanding return of multi-parties. And, you know, there was that battle. Maybe the donors also added the condition, but there was a national drive. Right from the CA 68 that worked out, that voted against one-party state.
Thank you. Major, you can
now,
carry
starting from Sarah, it is easy to understand the court battle, including court fees, were paid by foreigners. including the funding of the legislation, the litigation process itself. The lawyers who argued those cases were paid by foreigners.
You have evidence?
Yes.
Who paid them?
I'll give you.
UPC
But
law,
all I know
this is breaking news.
is
At
that
least for UPC lawyers, this is
even
breaking news.
litigation fees, the court fees were paid by foreigners to properly manage and argue this case. The foreigners were saying, trying always, tried through judicial process, tried through conditions. Court fees were paid by foreigners.
But
So it shouldn't be that because they went to courts of law and that is it. Look behind the curtain. Look behind the curtain.
I understand where you're coming from and the thinking
But you
that
still
there are
have two
foreign
pending
interests.
questions.
Yeah, but I just wanted to add something. Someone else can pay for your court fees, but it does not take away the fact that you as an individual are equally interested in that issue.
Fine. But also the fact is, why would this be interested in funding my court fees? Why would he? Even if I had.
Can I answer?
The format of the debate has changed.
the
Maybe
foreign-
because
It is
I'm
okay. No,
raising-
it's an interesting issue, yes.
The foreign powers, because I was at the helm of these things, these foreign powers were actively promoting Mr. Museveni and his political organization. It is simply that we had made it difficult for these organizations and their leaders and their governments, through their citizenry by the Sahara, the civic citizens of those countries, exposing the fact that those governments were supporting a system here that they will not sustain in their places. So these guys were just doing this thing to wrap it up.
Okay, now you have the floor fully.
Yeah.
We're not interrupting.
Maybe for my Guarantare, even litigations like during the anti-homosexuality bills, court fees were paid by foreigners. Who doesn't know that? Most of these cases which has foreign interests, one of the conditions, what these guys do is they look out for litigants and say, go. Then you say, I don't have legal fees to pay lawyers. We give you the money, and they give. That is what they do. Now, on the issue of Dr. Picking on my proof of democracy by having censure motions effectively done. If you use censure motion as a sign of democracy, in other words, you are justifying that there is element of democracy even in multi-party. Of course, if you're saying you're justifying that, because I was saying as a justification of democracy then, even under a no-party system, that because all of us were one, and you are not going to say Bart Katurebe is the opposition. Bart Katurebe, the Attorney General, would openly vote and censor a minister, which Attorney General now can't. Now, your importation of the current censure, unless you are now justifying your point that
this is how lawyers win cases.
yes, you are now justifying that because I used it as a justification of democracy. Now, if you're saying you're also using it as a then that is you justify your case. Now, you justify your case. But for me, I insist. For me, I insist that in the movement system, when I'm talking about censure, it is unprecedented that it can't happen in a system that the Attorney General would censor a fellow minister in cabinet. But because in a movement system, all of us were one, it did happen twice. It did happen twice. So that is for me an indicator, and all of us were one. Your question was, I've answered Sarah and him. What had you raised?
On the court issue?
No, the final point you're trying to...
You raised, okay, fine, I'll get it. But what I'm saying here is...
Are the options for multipartism? Like,
yes,
how do we make it work?
Movement system.
So, what I'm saying, if we were to be fraudulent like NRM, if NRM was to be fraudulent, I must mean what I say. I must mean what I say and say what I mean. If we were to be fraudulent, do you know that we would prefer multi-party than movement? Robert, I'm saying, if we were fraudulent...
I can't understand you.
Let me make you understand it. I am saying, much as in NRM we know that a multi-party system does not have the materiality for African or Ugandan democracy. But if we were fraudulent, we would be advocating for multi-party. Why? It's like this, Robert. Take the position of South Africa. South Africa, do you know for a long time they advocated for apartheid system, the white. But what was the result of the apartheid system? Africans sanctioned it to the extent they were caged with their strong economy. To the extent that a country like Uganda had in its passport to all countries in the world except South Africa. Now, South African economy was clocked there. When they abandoned apartheid, they now have MTN, banks, everything. Now, you ask a white person now, we go back to apartheid. I want equality. Why? Because it is easier to express the interest. That's why I'm saying if we were fraudulent, even if you ask us to go to movement, it is easier to manipulate and the multi-party. So the same way you cannot, but we are still honestly saying, come on, something is wrong. The other one is better. But I'm telling you, if we were fraudulent, we would be the advocate for multi-party.
Add him more time.
Yes, we would be, if we were fraudulent, it is easier to manipulate and gamble. It is easier to manipulate and gamble in a multi-party system. The same way the apartheid system worked. Apartheid was sanctioned. And yet some whites were arguing, no, blacks should develop separately, let the whites be here and the blacks be here. God created us differently. We cannot mix. We should be separate.
How would you manipulate?
So if we are to use
what I'm saying, let me answer you. Let me ask you, let me tell you.
I'm asking how would they...
The manipulation in a multi-party system is easy. Simply have money, fund, and get many MPs.
You see?
That is it. But that is not what we are. That's why you see the two candidates are still working. That is it. Yeah. That is why I'm being honest with you. I'm being honest with you. I'm being honest. That is why you still see the two cadres, me and him, are committing class suicide. We are seeing what is manipulatable, and we are still leaving the manipulatable. We are switching back to the movement system. We are committing class suicide. We are committing class suicide in that we are leaving a manipulatable situation and we are going back to the other one where even Attorney General will censor you. Okay? So, a multi-party system is imposed and it is going to be difficult. And that's why even any party member finds it difficult to define ideology across all parties. Because what is it? What is it? Everybody is fumbling. What is it?
So,
what is your ideology?
I'm told we need to wrap up. So
what is
my question?
Nothing.
Time. My final question earlier, I had already shared with you guys. Reimagining multipartism, a system that would actually work, that we can actually find our aspirations reflected in that, and how do we actually deliver such a system?
Yeah, I think the question we are grappling with here is giving birth to a good baby, but you give the baby to the bad babysitter. That baby is going to pick bad habits. If that bad babysitter is a thief, is going to become a thief. If the babysitter is that's the problem that has happened in Uganda and everywhere in Africa. I don't see any problem with multi-party politics, because when you look at multi-party politics, it's advocating for democracy, it is advocating for accountability, it is advocating for regular elections, it is advocating for building of systems and so on. But unfortunately, this good baby, the multi-party, is given to a bad-mannered babysitter who gives it, because you see, we live and do things according to the environment that we have grown up in. So multi-party in Africa has had very poor environment. And one of it is what she talked about. Nobody bothers in our border politic to explain to people why governance is a very important thing. They don't explain to people that governance gives us services, governance protects our security, and so on. If you hear the parties telling people what they are going to do, they are talking about things which are imaginable. They are just imagining things. They are talking about, I don't know, income, I don't know what. Income, if you want income, you can get a job. Or you do something. You don't need to support a political party to get income. That is not a source of income. We didn't study that in economics. So for me, I think what we need to do is to, I have borrowed the one word from him of saying and doing what you believe in. In this country, we have people saying different things, but doing the other. And that's why for me, this one, I am not only saying it here, I am not a serving Christian because of the kind of Christians that we have in Uganda. They say this, but they do the other.
Why don't you follow the Bible instead of
Will
human
I
beings?
follow it alone and I
Have
stay
a
alone?
relationship with God. It's you and God.
Christianity is a congregation. It's not a one-person thing.
You can
It's
gather
not
with
a-
like-minded
They
people
are
with
not
shared
there. They
values.
are not
In
there.
your own family, you don't have friends.
They are doing the other things. So I want to. I think in a country like Uganda, we just need to go back to the drawing board, and what we want, we know it. Honorable Dong has already said what the local people want. They know it. People want good services. They want good education. They want good health care. Those are the things that they want. Whether you go to Pade, whether you go to Bushenyi, those are the things that people want. But unfortunately, the people in power are transactors. They are doing a transaction of a country. And therefore, they are just using this political party or movement system or which other system to transact their business. Some want to be leaders, some want to be generals, some want to be what. So they're just there. So for me, what I think is that we need to go back to the drawing board, follow our constitution. Where the constitution is not doing well, we amend it. If we decide that we want political parties, we make sure that we follow political party principles. For example, in a multi-party dispensation, you don't keep on haunting your comrades in the political party. That when I put on my political party attire, you criminalize it. People are. Today I was discussing with my students, and I was telling them that, for example, in Uganda today, you would not need a French Revolution, and they say, "Sir, you are wrong.
I fear that class of yours.
We needed it yesterday." And I asked them why. They don't believe, students of today don't believe that in 2025, somebody should be kidnapped because of what he or she believes in. They should be left. If they have committed a crime, there is a proper way of arresting people, where they arrest you, they announce to you and your relatives where they are taking you. They take you to police for custody and immediately take you to court. So for me, I think whether you want to bastardize political parties that they did this, I think the problem is our leaders. Number one, we need good leaders. Number two, we need a civic-based society. Number three, we need people to follow the rule of law. And once we do that, we need a country where we don't care whether somebody is a Catholic, whether somebody is a Muslim, so long as he's providing what we have put as our basic needs in the governance principles that we have. Those are the people we want. So for me, I think political parties, we need to shun these people who go to political parties as a special purpose vehicle. That today, somebody is in DP, when he sees that DP is not doing very well, or he has seen that area now is NRM, he says, "Oh, I've now gone to NRM." When he sees that it's not doing well, he goes to NUP. That is not a political party believer. He's just a person who is using political party. And the majority of our leaders are in that category.
Thank you, Dr. Sarah.
Well, I don't subscribe to the notion that democracy or multi-party being foreign is our problem. Because in each of the countries, these principles are modified to suit the local context. For example, if you look at democracy as practiced in the UK, it's not the same as here. They have, the system of the parliamentary system of governance, their system of parliament, We modified ours. We have a hybrid of presidential and parliamentary. If you look at the local government system, ours is customized, plus the regional tier, which has never been functional, was customized to fit our context. So every country has modified the basic, principles of multi-party, of democracy to fit in their context. So I don't think that's the problem. The problem is lack of a foundation of civically competent citizens, a foundation of functional institutions and systems that would promote the rule of law, transparency, and accountability, but also a practice, a generation of leaders, polished leaders that are not there to manipulate the country, the people, and resources, but to serve. This is our problem. If we fix it, any system would serve the people. If we fix the basics, the foundational principles of leadership, then we would have a smooth multi-party politics, where multipartism would have an advantage as compared to the Ugandan movement system. Is that multipartism now, if we fixed the foundation, it would give us a platform of leaders of common beliefs to come together and say, for us, we believe maybe education should be free. We believe if we extract our oil revenue, then education and health should be free for all. And then you have others who say, no, for us, we need to make roads. People will make money and pay for their education. And then people choose between the two group competing ideas. But we don't have this process in place. And now we just have vulgarization of democracy. So I think we need, as a country, to fix the basics.
Thank you. Judge?
From the time our constitution was promulgated, I think that's around 2000?
95.
95,
yes.
because CA was 1994,
Yeah,
then 1995. It
95,
was.
yeah.
Came into effect
So-
on the
8th October.
Independence Day.
8th October 1995.
1995 to date. So those are how many years?
30, making 30.
When you look at the demographics, just look at it. I think Sarah posted it sometime here. I think up to 30 years, we have about 70% of the population is about that. So even as we discuss what model works best, we have to be conscious about what kind of people are we
Creating this model
creating
for.
this model for. The younger generation, the Gen Zs, the Gen
Alpha.
Alpha, and so on and so forth,
Millennial.
the millennials and so on, that have experienced this multi-party. Don't even talk about movement system, because they don't even understand what movement system is. People who have been there for 30 years have not experienced movement system. They have experienced multi-party system. Do you think that if you ask them whether this model works, that they will tell you that it does? They will tell you probably it doesn't, because it's not fixing the problems. In fact, they see trouble. You see what I'm saying? So every system that works, I come from a public policy space, governance and public policy space. And I know that, you see, if you're developing a policy and you put it, give it a dry run, bring it back, do an implementation. If it does not work, policy continues to be recalibrated. You rethink it, you remodel it, to suit the conditions. If it does not work,
You retire it.
you retire it. You withdraw it. You can say this policy does not work. It's not a badge of, there's no shame.
Yeah.
Okay? In saying, I think this does not work. Let's rethink the model. Because what you want to do is to deal with the problem. Now, that's why I agree, and I said it initially, and I agree with Sarah here, that we need the foundations to be solid that's what the basis for building whichever model we adopt. Whether you want multi-party, whether you want and so on, we can even be and say, it is the leaders, it is this. But if you have a very good leader in a political party, and that political party is built along religious lines, that political party is built along tribal lines, that political organization will pursue religious interests, will pursue tribal interests. It's not national in character. So the foundation has got to be dealt with.
Yeah.
You know, in political economy, they will tell you the superstructure must reflect to a greater extent the base. The base. And what is the base?
The people.
The people. So that you build that superstructure on the interests of the people. Whether it's legislation, whether it's organizations, those are the superstructure. That's what we call the superstructure. It should be built on the base, which is the people. So when you define who are our Ugandans right now, they actually don't care whether you are NUP, whether you are NRM, whether you are DP. Their conditions are the same. Whether you go to Mbarara, whether you go to... They want somebody who is able to deal with household poverty, the roads, what you are defining here.
Health
so
sector,
and so forth.
education, and so on.
So for me, really, we need to have that as the basis. First, fix the governance issue, and then you are going to deal with how we organize ourselves to provide leadership.
Thank you. And Joseph?
You provide the leadership, you provide the climate, meaning the environment in which that happens. You'll marry what Sarah and George are saying, and then you will come to the fact that what we are discussing in terms of political pluralism and leadership is all about competition of ideas. Now, when you take what we attempted to avoid today, but to refer to, was politics of the left plus of the right, taxation of others otherwise, you'll find two competing political parties that believe, in my case, that you need more money for public services, education, health, and infrastructure. And a conservative political party that believes, no, less taxes, let people do whatever they want to do with their money and business and things like that. George, you take that to the average citizens in this case, maybe Busembat here, and you say NUP is represented by these values, UPC is represented by these values, NRA is represented by these values. In fact, there is evidence that NRA has had 40 years, and this is what we managed to do. UPC, we had it before, but we're asking that we should do a lot more in the future, but this is what we managed to do, and this is what we believe. And NUP, oh, we're young and vibrant, these guys are no-nonsense. The average Ugandan citizen in Busembat, in a free, open environment, with systems that work, that Barack Obama told Africans, institutions, kind of things that Sarah talked about, should have the capacity to say, of these ones, which one do I go for?
Yeah.
They will do it in the absence of money, they will do it in the absence of coercion, and they will do it, and why I talk about leadership, can you imagine, and I'll conclude very quickly, this is very important. In UPC, all Milton Obote in 2002, at his balcony in Lusaka, amongst the many things he told me, Joe, we are liberated, and I'm liberated from religion, and I'm liberated from tribe. And I think one of my two colleagues will talk about it.
Tribe and
Why it's
hate.
important really for our viewers, that yes, there is certain nonsense out there which is culturally embedded, whether through political parties, organizations, terrible parents, terrible communities in recent times, that if this conversation is to be meaningful, we need to detox these things off our head. That old man was telling me that we managed in diversity in the 60s, regardless, to deliver. The next generation of the Rwanyarari, Cecilio Guas, and Museveni's, whatever they tried, your generation, we are handing over to yourselves. This is how we do and should do it. The concern is actually the Gen Zs and the millennials. What is it that they're picking? And my worry is they're not picking very good lessons from contemporary leaders. They're not picking very good lessons from this choked environment where it is about me, myself, and I. To the extent, to conclude, that even my own political party, Uganda People's Congress, at the moment, when I go around the country, you see that people will like you, Ochieno, and oh, we saw you, and you say this, and you used to say about it, and you do this. But sort of there is some limited, narrow interest beyond the big picture. And when you go into the conversation about leadership, now we have a leadership contestation about 4 of us. And I was asking myself the other day that, look, come to think of the 4 lead people in Uganda People's Congress, minus myself, I know myself, I actually don't know what ideological interest my other colleagues are, or which big idea if somebody came to government as a political party. Granted, our values are the same as picking from our manifesto, but what areas of emphasis? Judith, in other democracies, when political parties, I imagine it's important to pick leaders, they'll say maybe so and so. We know so and so is about mine workers. So and so's pushed agenda for young women and things like that. Maybe if they become our leader, our values will be safe with them. And if we go ahead and form government, it will be safe with them. It's not there. Mm-hmm. How are we able to narrow that amidst this very large conversation? I do not know. But pluralism is the way forward. Competition of ideas, multipartism. But I think this country needs a fundamental reset. Fundamental reset where we begin to have this kind of conversation, where possibly NRA is not the factor, but NRA is part of the wider conversation on how we go forward politically.
Thank you. And lastly, you, Major.
Well, I was looking at this from the cause and the symptoms, like a doctor would see it. You see, when you talk of multi-party is good, but the problem is the leaders, the problem is the poverty, the problem is whatever, you are just talking of the symptoms, not the cause. It's like somebody having malaria, and that malaria has caused diarrhea and running nose, and you are busy treating running nose to stop it. It won't stop until, if you treat the malaria, the nose will dry. Now, all these bad leaders thing, it's because fundamentally, the multi-party thing cannot. For example, Judith, we have in NRM what we term as our ideology, the core principle: democracy, social transformation, Pan-Africanism,
patriotism.
Now, even if you tell somebody that this is the core principle which forms the ideology, because of the inherent nature of the party system, even if it goes outside the gate, it would have forgotten. Just outside the gate, nothing. So this thing of saying that we have not strong leaders or not right leaders and all this, that is just a symptom, okay? For us, we have seen it here, for those of us who believe in the movement. President Museveni, for example, said that you people, you want this thing of you as a multi-party. This movement system has its merit. He pointed one, he said, do you know that under movement system, you can be a PS, you go and contest for parliamentary, you lose, and you come back. You can't have it under multi-party because you have already been partitioned. You are coming to civil service to serve who? Therefore, the debate we are having now, we should be cognizant that the drafters of the Constitution were naive about it. The drafters of the 95 Constitution were aware, and that is why Article 69 says, under political systems, it provides that it provides for political systems in Uganda. 1, multi-party. 2, movement. Actually provide with that, say, and any other democratic system. Therefore, if, like Honorable Odongo says, that in the 30 years, if you ask a Ugandan about political parties, he will say there's nothing good. Then the drafters of the 95 Constitution were not wrong anyway. They have provided an alternative. We go back to the alternative provided for in Article 69. Movement, political system.
Or any other, like federal.
And on that note, I bring this discussion to a close. I don't want to go into another talk show for another 1 hour. Thank you very much, though, Dr. Robert Ojiambo, Dr. Sarah Bireete, Honorable George Odongo, Mr. Joseph Ochieno, and you, retired Major Awich Pollar. My name is Judith Atim. I'm your host, and thank you very much for being a part of this discussion. We've been talking about the state of multi-party politics, multi-party democracy in Uganda since independence, and we've gained very interesting insights from our panelists here. Do join us again next time for another interesting discussion, but also don't forget to drop us a comment in the comment section, and also like and subscribe to the channel, and also follow us on our different social media platforms. From us here in the studio, it is bye-bye. Till next time.